make a third lane drop for a while, and Richard was just barely able to push through.
All right, so we have both players getting ready to play here. Jason Smith, he's on the left. He, as a virtue of being he's the 6th seed, so he's the lower seed, or the lower seed in the matchup. He'll be on the draw here. That's going to be pretty good, I think, for the Delver player.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the play matters so much. Jason's deck is so much Mana Denial. He's playing with Aether Vial, Thalia. These are all cards that are so much better on the play. They're both decks that try to leverage resource advantages. So when you're playing that kind of game, being on the play is a huge deal. Being on the play is a big deal in nearly every Legacy matchup, and this is no different.
Yeah, we saw last time, or at least in the top 4, one of the things is that the resource denial that Bug Delver brings doesn't always match up all that well against Death and Taxes. Richard had some Wastelands. They were just sitting there as colorless lands. They can't really waste a Plains. Jason never exposed himself to Wasteland, and Jason went at the Bug player's mana instead.
Yeah, it's, the Death and Taxes deck is just a little bit more streamlined. Part of that is just the mana base, and then part of it is the cards are a little less predicated on certain things happening. You look at a card like Daze, Richard needs to push the game in a certain direction for that card to be very powerful, whereas Jason's disruptive elements are a lot more straightforward, not really that situational, and that's part of the reason I like Death and Taxes in the matchup.
All right, we're underway. See Jason Smith's hand. He's got a Rishid Import in it. Fair number of lands. Looks like he's going to be keeping. He sets down his hand.
And Richard only has very few ways of breaking up a active Mother of Runes. He has Abrupt Decay before it becomes active. He has a Dimir Charm before it becomes active. He has a Jason the Mind Sculptor before it becomes active. And then 2 Lilianas that probably don't work, but maybe some percentage of the time do. And if Mother of Runes gets online, then a lot of Richard's protective elements don't work. Combat on the ground becomes a problem, and so on and so forth. So that's another dimension to this that Richard has to look out for.
All right, and light openings from both players. Richard without one of his 1-drop creatures. He just ponders on turn 1. Jason, no Mother of Runes, no Aether Vial. He just makes Plains and passes back.
Slow opening here. Richard, I believe, with his 1 main deck copy of Sylvan Library, probably not the best matchup for this card, but if it's going to be good in any spot, it'll be on the play, game 1 against an opponent who just played a land and passed.
Yeah, we do see there are a good number of lands here from Jason Smith. He does have Phyrexian Revoker as a possible 2-drop, though nothing to revoke just yet.
Yeah, there are a couple Revoker targets here. The Deathbright Shaman, some Planeswalkers. Not a lot, though.
All right, turn 2, it's Tarmogoyf for Richard Shay. It is a 2-3 right now. He gets the first threat onto the board. We will see where Jason goes from here. He has another copy of Rishid Import. So if he can get ahead, it looks like he could Mana Denial Richard right now.
And these Bug Delver lists, Rug Delver, Blue, White, Red, they don't play that many actual lands. And so ports and wastelands can be really disruptive. They're trying to play a resource-like game and using the cantrips to make sure they find a sufficient number of lands and spells. But that is susceptible to getting blown up by land destruction effects.
Yeah, Smith's going to go ahead and swords this Tarmogoyf. He looks like he's going in for the long game here, just playing the removal spell, puts a land first to play around Daze, and it's going to work.
You can see Jason there decided not to play at the end of the turn. This is the issue of playing against someone with Daze in their deck, Are you going to play around with the whole game? It looks like Richard does in fact have Daze in his hand, so Jason being paid off for his discipline.
Sometimes Daze are like an invisible Thalia if you want against players. Well, another replacement Tarmogoyf hits for Richard Shay. We'll see if this one can actually stick around. A lot more lands in Jason's hand. I believe he may have another swords. We do see some ports and Plains. He drew Aether Vial for the turn. I'm not even sure how many creatures he has to throw out with it, though.
Well, because he kind of wants to port anyway, I could see a play of casting the Aether Vial and just porting. Now, maybe the vial doesn't do anything in the short term, but long term it'll be helpful to have it in play. And if porting is better than doing anything, than casting anything anyway, you might as well play one of your 1-mana spells. Now, Jason's going to go with Plow instead, which seems even better.
Yeah, he wants to get that Tarmogoyf off the board. He can actually he may be able to get the Aether Vial down right now. He could choose to either port Richard off green mana or play Aether Vial. He's going to go with the Aether Vial here.
Now, Richard, is running out of things to do on the main phase of the green mana, so I can see giving up the port this turn. Unfortunately for Jason, Richard does have one of those cards in his Sylvan Library.
We'll see Brainstorm drawn for Richard. He does not have a 4th land. That could be pretty dangerous. Remember, next turn, Jason, I believe, has a second Rishid Import, so can start going down the Aether Vial double port plan.
Since Richard is going to cast Sylvan Library anyway, he may as well brainstorm this turn, and he definitely could use a 4th land regardless.
He does find it. His draws are Dimir Charm, Liliana, and he has that 4th land, and it's a fetch land. So what he puts back, he's not going to see again. This may be a pretty good opening for Liliana.
Yeah, Liliana's in a good spot here. He can get a 2nd green source of mana, so he doesn't really care about getting ported the following turn. He has more resources than Jason at this point, so plussing Liliana is good for him, and then multiple copies of Diabolic Edict sit in play, which is also excellent for Richard.
All right. And so we'll see what play he makes here. Whether he goes for the Liliana on here, I'd have to think he wants to get some sort of presence like Liliana down.
Yeah, it just forces Jason's hand a little bit. And if Jason's planning on trying to fight through the Liliana with the Aether Vial, Richard has Abrupt Decay to do that as well.
All right, we see he's going to go just for Sylvan Library. This is really a digging in late game play, right? So he's leaving Sylvan Library so that he can basically do a brainstorm with it, putting back cards and cracking Verdant Catacombs.
Yeah.
Can he go this late? I mean, his opponent's going to have Aether Vial Reach imports. I'm not saying it certainly is not how I would normally see a Bug Delver deck player play this. That's not to say it's wrong, but it's a different take.
And actually, I would have gone the entirely different direction if I was in Richard's shoes. The Sylvan Library would have been the first card that I played instead of the Tarmogoyf on turn 2. But I don't mind getting it into play now.
All right, Jason Smith plays that 2nd port. He's going to go on the port and Aether Vial plan. First, he opts to tap Verdant Catacombs. And this is a really good ruse here. He's going to force Richard to crack the Catacombs. Otherwise, Jason could actually wasteland it. And I don't even think Jason has the wasteland, but Richard doesn't want to take that risk.
Yeah, and cutting off the flexibility of a shuffle is really good here.
Yeah, so he'll take the shuffle now. Granted, a Bayou could still be wasted, but he wanted to make sure he got the mana from the card. And now another port. We probably, with one of every duel, he can't take Richard off any colors.
Yeah, I would probably tap the Underground Sea here. Richard could potentially use black mana, multiple black mana for him to Torak. And, I mean, it doesn't really matter too much in the scheme of things here. He also may chain together multiple blue spells in the same turn. So Underground Sea seems like the best land to me, but it's all probably of little consequence.
Well, Richard, before his draw here, he's going to go ahead and Abrupt Decay that Aether Vial. Then going to go ahead and going to Sylvan Library. And yeah, it's interesting. So these are both creature-based decks, but this really does feel like a controlled mirror we're playing right now.
Well, that only really happened because of the type of draw that Jason had. You know, it was light on pressure and heavy on mana denial elements. And it looks like Richard wants the whole lot over there.
Yeah, hanging on to Dimir Charm in his hand. That's a card that actually should be pretty active against Death and Taxes. Richard kind of, doing this this control strategy. He's going to sit and get value off Sylvan Library and fetch lands. And now he makes a Tarmogoyf. This is Tarmogoyf number 3.
And he just drew 3 here. He's trying to dig for a 3rd land, and or 5th land rather. He's under no pressure. And he's gained a bunch of life off of the Source of Plowshares on his Tarmogoyfs earlier. So I like paying 8 there. I feel like when I'm playing with Sylvan Library, I pay 8 much more on the first one than most people do. So it's sometimes a little bit affirming to watch Richard do the same thing.
I like card drawing far too much. I probably just can't play cards like Sylvan Library because I kill myself with it. It's really bad. I'll take like 16 off the card when I play it. Jason with a 5th land here. And he does have Phyrexian Revoker. And we'll see what he chooses to name off that in just a second. He also has Spirit of the Labyrinth in play. Now, I think Sylvan Library actually gets around that. I'm not sure. I don't believe it draws the extra cards. I believe it, you keep them and pay 4 life.
It looks like that's going to be set to Liliana of the Veil. I believe Sylvan Library does draw the cards, but we'll find out momentarily.
All right. Yeah, he does have some creature of his own. That Spirit of the Labyrinth here looks like it's going to get dazed. So he taps out Jason on the play, and that's because he has the 2nd daze. Doesn't want to see Spirit.
Now this traps him a little bit further into the Rashad and Port setup here that Jason has, but he does get the Threatening Spirit of the Labyrinth off the table, and Richard again still ahead on the board with his Tarmogoyf and Sylvan Library.
Yeah, it's a pretty costly pair of daisies here. Remember that Jason does have 2 ports, so bouncing 2 lands to Richard Shay is not free in this situation.
Absolutely not.
And all right, so we're back here. Sylvan Library. This time, just taking a modest 1 card off the Sylvan Library.
I imagine that means that Richard has found a land, as that's the thing he's digging for the most on his draw step at this stage.
All right, Tarmogoyf's going to swing, and Tarmogoyf has gotten huge this game. He is now a 6/7, thanks to, well, Spirit of the Labyrinth is, because it's from Theros Black, it happens to be an enchantment creature. And Richard going to go at Jason's hand. It's him to Turok now.
Him is better than a land here.
That is the rest of Jason's cards, and his cards were a land and a Caracas. So not much value here for Jason. He's out of resources and facing down a rather large Tarmogoyf.
And Richard finished off the turn by just exploding with resources here. A 3rd land and a Deathrite Shaman. Now these ports don't mean very much. Richard can easily operate through it and has a substantial clock and Tarmogoyf in play.
Yeah, a pretty big flood here for Jason, I would have to say, right? So he had a Revoker and a Spirit of the Labyrinth, but those were his only creatures this game. He kept his hand on the strength of double port.
Yeah. And ports can buy you a lot of time to find your action, especially alongside Aether Vial, but Richard was able to blow that up, and then Jason didn't find much in the way of action.
The danger of not playing Brainstorm and Legacy is that sometimes you don't have perfect draws. All right. He's going to go ahead and port the Bayou. That'll take Richard somewhat off of green mana. Deathrite Shaman will still help him with whatever colors he needs.
Yeah, although I'm sure at this point, with Jason kind of up against the ropes, Richard would prefer to use the Deathrite Shaman here as just a clock.
All right. And we are still in upkeep. He's not going to port again right now. Okay, so he's waiting until Richard draws. And then, okay, he's going to go ahead and port the 2nd land. Looks like a little bit of question to sequencing there, but ends up being the same result. Jason ports 2 lands.
Yeah, I think he's just asking, where is this happening in relation to the Sylvan Library?
Sylvan Library is a very confusing card. Printed from Legends, it doesn't play as it reads. I believe it reads with a 0, like some readings are a 0 mana activated ability, which it's not that anymore. You can't revoke it. Like I said, some confuses whether sometimes it puts them in your hand, it has in history, sometimes it has drawn them. But a powerful card, any way you split it.
Doesn't play like it reads. It could be basically the advertising tagline for the Legends set. Do you enjoy playing with cards that do not do what they say in the text box?
Yeah, you have to look up online how your cards work. All right, Dimir Charm takes care of Mother Runes while she's still summoning sick, and a big swing from Richard Shay. That's going to, with Tarmogoyf, it's going to put Jason down to 7 and in danger of a lethal attack next turn. Another Deathrite Shaman for Shay.
And Jason really needs to have Source of Plowshares this turn to even have a hope of keeping his head above water.
Yeah, and looks like the Deathrites will finish it off. Jason can't answer the Tarmogoyf and live through these Deathrites, and game 1 goes over to Shay.
And that's a big game for Richard to pick up here because I think he improves much more in the sideboard games than Jason does, but we'll get to that momentarily.
All right, welcome back to the booth here. So while these players are sideboarding, this is our last giveaway of the evening. This is a year's worth of Star City Games Premium. Rules will stay the same. Tweet the correct answer with this hashtag SCG Premium, tweet it at us, and at the end we'll be giving away a year. So
the question is, next week, where is the Open Series heading to next? Cedric and I will be in the booth and name that city.
I'm jealous of you guys for this place. I like this place.
This place is really fun.
All right. That's our hint. It's really fun. And also, if you don't like the hint, you could also find it on the website.
I'm a little surprised with you having a head for mathematics that you can enjoy this place.
Yes.
Selectively.
Sure. Okay. Selectively. Okay. Yes.
Okay. All right. Because it's like, is the scam just too explicit, For someone with a head for mathematics.
Most of the scams are. There's like a couple of them which wouldn't be, and that's the fun part.
Okay.
Is if you have enough math, then you find the ones that work in your favor.
Find the right scam.
Right.
That's a good recipe in this city or anywhere else in life. Moving on the sideboard here, you see Rich Shay on the right, 2 copies of Graftracker's Cage and Null Rod, a Pithy Needle, Sylvan Library, 2 Disfigures, a Flush of Storm, 2 Golgari Charms, 2 Submerges, 2 Vendilion Clicks, and a Jace the Mind Sculptor. The removal seems really sweet to me here.
Yeah, removal is going to be great here from Richard. He has such a control build of Bug Delver. It's almost like Bug Delver. The Bug decks, they have this like continuum they work on. Sometimes they bleed between like Team America decks, Bug Delver, Bug Control. Richard's almost bleeding into the control side of the deck.
Yeah, so I think you're going to see the 2 Disfigures come in here. The Pithy Needle, a great answer to the equipment, Stoneforge, Mystic. Aether Vial is another very threatening card. But the 2 Golgari Charms to me stand out as the real haymaker. Jason with all sorts of one-toughness creatures in his deck, and Golgari Charm sweeps them all up. Most notably, the troublesome Mother of Runes, which Richard does not have a lot of answers to game 1.
Yeah, we definitely have seen that to be the case. Once again, I have to ask the question, how good is Null Rod? There's a lot of artifacts in this deck, too. You have to wonder with that kind of card, just because you see artifacts, can you board it in? For example, there is equipment, there is Aether Vial. Is this the kind of thing you want?
I think Null Rod passes the test. We talked about this earlier against Brian Bondwin playing Miracles because Sensei's Divining Top is so critical to what he's doing. I don't think that's quite enough juice to warrant bringing in Null Rod, but against Death and Taxes, it feels like there's enough there. You have Aether Vial, you have equipment, and that seems to me like enough of a reason to bring in Null Rod.
All right, over on Jason Smith's side, he has quite the sideboard here himself. We talked a little bit about this last round. Cards like Wiltleaf Liege hanging in there to ambush a Liliana. You said before you liked Sunlance. I definitely agree with that. We thought Rest in Peace last time do quite the number on a Bug player.
It's maybe a little bit worse here. It's still coming in. It's still likely to be good, but because Richard has so much removal and he has access to Planeswalkers, he may be able to flip into some sort of control deck where he wins with a Planeswalker eventually. And so he can get away from Rest in Peace completely blowing him out because he can take the game to a completely different direction.
Yeah, some of the more interesting cards in the sideboard, I know they're not for this matchup, but I just kind of point out, I haven't seen Armageddon in a Legacy deck list for a while.
Yeah, these Death and Taxes lists all play 1 or 2 copies of Cataclysm because there's a little more flexibility, answer certain troublesome permanents along the way. I do like going to good, simple, straightforward Armageddon.
3 words in the text box.
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome. We know exactly what this does. And if you want to talk about Mana Denial, that's quite the card for it.
Yes. Also very powerful in concert with Aether Vial because you can still cast your stuff. I don't know if it's going to be coming in this matchup. He is more, I feel like, more of the beatdown deck than Richard is in the matchup, particularly post-board, but Richard with copies of Deathrite Shaman, a pretty low base of mana in general. I don't know if this is exactly the matchup you want Armageddon in. It's close to me. I could go either way on this one.
So last time when we saw Jason play the semifinals, remember that was against Greg Mitchell playing another Bug Delver deck. I had the distinct feeling that Jason was the control deck here. He certainly was playing it from a control role. I know Richard's deck is slightly different. Has the role you alluded to this, has like the role switched just because of the different cards Richard's playing?
I think so, although a lot of the role assessment in this matchup to me comes down to player draw. The person who is on the play is probably going to get in front on resources, be able to put together a more aggressive posture, and the player on the draw just has to be on their back foot. So I think it's a little fluid based on who's on the play and who's on the draw. Richard boarding in all of this removal and being on the draw, I believe, makes him firmly the control player.
All right, we'll have this one underway. See if Jason Smith can get one of the games here. Remember, by and large, this Death and Taxes player, he played Rug Delver. He played Jonathan Morris round 1, snuck by that one in 3. He played Greg Mitchell in round 2 of this top 8. That was another Delver player. Jason Smith has been moving his way through Delver in this top 8.
But Richard Shay, a very skilled opponent, and all these Bug lists, all these Delver lists look different from one another. So it's hard to, read in too much to any one particular match because it's so fluid based on individual card choices. And it really only takes 3 or 4 or 5 cards to make the decks play dramatically different because there's so many cantrips in all these decks. People are looking at so many cards, really magnifies the significance of those last few slots.
All right, and you see there's the deck list there. Both players in the top 8 allowed to look at each other's deck lists. There are some limitations on that. They can't do it during the match, but they can do it during sideboarding.
Yeah.
So both going back to the deck list, maybe checking for a couple things, seeing if they want to modify their strategy at all.
It's important, to remember every last little detail here because, especially if you're on Jason's side, how many copies of Golgari Charm am I playing against? That number needs to be in his head at all times because if he's sloppy about it, he just loses the game on the spot.
Absolutely. See Richard here, pre-checking his deck list, his current configuration as well, wanting to make sure that he has the right cards in here.
I brought this up on previous broadcasts. Sometimes it surprises me that Death and Taxes doesn't have any copies of Path to Exile on the sideboard, or is very rare, because these bug, rug, blue, white, red matchups feel like they would get improved dramatically. These decks play no basic lands, and having extra copies of Swords to Plowshare seems right what this deck is in the market for. I understand Sunlands being the card you want some percentage of the time, because against a deck like Elves, you don't want to be pathing them on turn 1, which Sunlands doesn't open you up to. So I understand it's not quite the same card, but I am surprised that these decks regularly play 0 copies of Path to Exile.
Well, let's throw out with it. Okay, so right now, Jason Smith, he does have the 4 swords in the main. He has 1 Sunlance in the sideboard. That's all the 1 mana white removal he has. Presume right now that Path was just another swords. You know, how many would he actually play?
Well, he would be cutting swords for paths, because the life gain matters, and the paths are a total free roll. How many of that effect would he want in his deck?
Yeah,
I don't know. Probably, I would guess 6 or 7 copies is probably his ceiling, but Path is an upgrade on Plow, because these games do come down to damage races, as we've seen several times. We saw Jason barely squeak out a match where it involved, there's equipment on my Sarah Avenger, and I'm blocking your Tomerglyphs, getting hit in the air, and Plow would have been a pretty big cost to pay, even though it would have been powerful in a lot of those spots because the damage race was so close.
I do think I agree with you. It's a card that will certainly be an upgrade. Imagine what it comes down to is, 15 sideboard slots, especially in a format like Legacy, where you have to be able to morph to face a lot of different opponents. Like, each of those slots has a lot of pressure placed on it. So maybe it's just I would imagine he doesn't have enough time to upgrade the card. Like, he just needs those spots for other things.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you got to cover a lot of bases here, especially a deck like Death and Taxes that brings a lot of underpowered cards to the table. Your sideboard cards need to matter a lot, and the space is at a premium. But it is still, I'm still surprised by it. It seems like a very easy 2-of to have in the sideboard that would improve a lot of these types of matchups.
Yeah, I mean, it is certainly would be good against a Bug Delver deck. I don't think there's any arguing on that point. And maybe because Delver is such a healthy part of the metagame, it warrants, if that really does improve the matchup, you'd like to have 2 Delver-specific cards in your board. That's not unreasonable at all.
Right, that's more the thing is, yeah, there's a lot of matchups that you have to shore up, but in a large Legacy tournament, the biggest one you have to shore up, no matter what deck you're playing, are various swaths of Delver strategies because they're so prevalent.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine there's some cards in the sideboard that he hasn't used today, and you could go into a Legacy tournament with the paths on your board knowing that you'd be using them at some point.
Yeah, it's 100% to come up.
Yeah. All right, we are underway here. Jason Smith, this time on the play. Remember, he was on the draw game 1, so this will be the easier game of the other 2 for him. He will have a bit of a tempo advantage over his Delver opponent.
So it looks like another land-heavy hand here.
Yeah, it has a turn 1 Mother of Runes on the play, so I imagine he'll keep. That seems like such a powerful effect against Bug Delver.
Less so in the post-board games. It looks like Richard's taking a mulligan just because of Golgari Charm. Game 1, Mother of Runes is a house, but Richard has better answers to it in the post-board games.
All right, so post-board, ways that Richard can answer Mother of Runes, because this does come up. He has a lot of pinpoint removal and can't let it stick around.
He has 2 copies of Disfigure in his sideboard. He has the Golgari Charms that work at any point. He has a Pithy Needle, which effectively answers it. And then he has a couple things that work if they appear on time or in the right order. 4 copies of Abrupt Decay, a Dimir Charm, and his Planeswalkers.
Yeah, Liliana of the Veil, if he can get everything else. But that'd be difficult to do with Liliana, because the problem that Mother of Runes brings is that she makes the other creatures impossible to kill. So there's probably another creature in play if she's a problem.
Yeah, we're talking about hypothetical possibilities, but that one's unlikely to manifest itself in a game.
Yeah. Shay down to 6 cards here. And yeah, Mother of Runes definitely, and sometimes what I like about Mother of Runes in the deck is as the deck has gotten more disruptive with the printing on other cards, like Mother of Runes has gotten even, like she's complemented the strategy. Mother of Runes into Thalia, for example, even from any sort of non-creature spell deck is really threatening.
And there's a lot of matchups where active Mother of Runes and then just creatures with no text boxes, just numbers, are going to beat some of your opponents because it makes attacking and blocking so challenging.
All right, Richard keeps on the 6, so we will start out. That's turn 1 Plains, and it is Mother of Runes from Jason Smith. This is the chance where he said spells like Disfigure could work. If Richard doesn't have one, this Mother's going to get to stick.
Yeah, although if Richard has a Golgari Charm in his hand, he may choose to try to trap Jason into deploying multiple one-toughness creatures before ultimately sweeping them all away.
All right, Richard goes ahead and grabs Underground Sea. We'll see whether or not it is the black spell of Disfigure or whether or not it's a Ponder. We know he has a Ponder at the front of his hand. He also does have the Pithing Needle in his hand, so maybe he doesn't care too much about Mother of Runes at the moment. He's going to Ponder.
And he doesn't need the Pithing Needle right now. Even if he plans on doing it to Mother of Runes eventually, he can do that when he's ready to actually start deploying some removal spells or block or what have you.
It's not like he's going to take damage from her in the meantime.
Right.
I mean, I guess in theory he could, but that's really not how that plays. And deciding on his Ponder here. And Jason's hand looks like it's still on the disruptive side when we saw it, not so much on the creature side of things. Mother of Runes certainly helps both plans, both the aggro plan and disruption plan. But
it looks like Richard has brought in the Null Rod. Appears to be in his hand.
yeah. It's just, he has Null Rod. He also does have Thalia right now. He's going to go with Stoneforge Mystic. That's his 2-drop of choice. And we'll see what he grabs with it. His equipment package in the main is 3 deep. It has Umezawa's Jete, Sword of Fire and Ice, and Batter Skull. In the sideboard, the only other artifact he runs is Manriki Gasari, which wouldn't see play in this match.
More for mirror matches or, other Stoneforge decks, basically.
Yeah. Would he still have all 3 of the other spells, do you think? All 3 of the equipment in post-board, or does he shave down to 2?
I think I like having all 3 copies. These games go long post-board. He's slogging through a lot of removal spells, and you get to the point where the random Stoneforges you get become very powerful threats on their own because there's so much equipment floating around.
All right, Stoneforge Mystic goes ahead and gets Batter Skull here. Batter Skull, as far as also being probably just the most powerful play that Stoneforge gets, also plays around Abrupt Decays from Richard later on. He basically has to kill he would have to normally kill the Stoneforge Mystic right now, but he can't do that because of Mother of Runes. So this is the safest equipment for him to get.
For sure. Although, Richard, with his Pithing Needle here, can shut down these kind of shenanigans.
Question will be whether he chooses to shut down the Stoneforge or shut down the Batter Skull. I mean, the damage would be done if he lets the Batter Skull get into play. And we'll see, there's a lot of options here.
I imagine this is getting set to Stoneforge Mystic.
It is.
Yeah.
Good news from that. Does mean that Jason's going to get to keep his Mother of Runes going. And as we know, there's a Thalia hanging out in his hand too. A lot of other things that Mother would really like to protect.
Yeah, it's possible, if Richard had more mana and could sequence some things, you might see him try to clear up everything. But in the short term, you just can't let that Batter Skull get into play. Bug is really poorly suited to handle that card.
All right. Stoneforge Mystic. Well, it can't activate, so it's going to swing. Richard's down to 18.
Now it is, since it's now fully a Squire, just time to get in the red zone.
I really like the flavor on the card, how it's a Squire. What, it comes and it brings you your weapon.
Yeah.
That's what a Squire is supposed to do. A Wasteland from Jason Smith, that's going to take out an Underground Sea. Thalia as well, so a double hit on mana, and Jason's starting to pull away on the board here.
Now, if Richard can get to his copy of Golgari Charm here, he can really swing this game around, but Jason's going to do everything in his power to keep him off mana.
Yeah, we see a little more. Does he have more disruption? Looks like he has a Horizon Canopy in his hand.
I believe another Wasteland, and I think momentarily it's going to be going after that Underground Sea.
Second, yeah, he does have another Wasteland. That'll be really powerful, trying to keep Richard off all his colored mana sources. That's exactly it. Wasteland for the turn, and it hits Underground Sea. Does Richard have a Brainstorm or anything in response? If he does, he will almost certainly fire it off here.
Yeah, he's got to do something. I mean, if he can't even cast the Disfigure into this Mother of Runes, so.
Yeah, he does have the Golgari Charm, as you mentioned, but no more lands for the turn. He draws and passes back. And Jason has succeeded in keeping him off mana. Now he has to kill him.
Yeah. Although he's got a bit of pressure going here. Richard going from 15 to 12. And now Caracas to protect his Thalia, so he's got a little clock going.
Yep, another Wasteland for Richard. It's a land, but it gets him no closer to that Golgari Charm that he needs. And here is, let's go with the sideboarded card that he's boarded in. He drew Wilt Leaf Liege for the turn.
All right, well, that's that speeds up the clock quite a bit if he wants to go for it here.
And Will Leaf Legion, one of the more interesting choices we see here. This card, actually, as cast, seems okay. The big thing is against a Liliana deck, this can win you the entire game.
Yeah, I'm surprised it did. I'm actually surprised it didn't get cast that turn. Just go beatdowns.
Yeah, Anthem's the whole team. It's possible he doesn't want to give Shay the information that he's boarded it in.
Sure.
This game is isn't won, but it's very close.
That's fair.
I mean, if Richard knows that he's boarded in Wilt-Leaf Liege, he'll definitely think twice about plussing a Liliana.
Yeah, that makes sense. Although I think Richard can safely assume it's there. But you're right. If he feels like he's got it locked up, there's some small value here to be gained.
Yeah, especially if Richard has kept in cards like him to Turok. The Wilt-Leaf Liege is a pretty good sideboard against that, as Richard can't stop it from hitting a Wilt-Leaf Liege. Aether Vial there for the turn, a 5th land for Jason Smith. Richard still on colorless lands, still under Athalia, discarding for the turn, discards Tarmogoyf. He is at 6, and it looks like 2 more swings from the duo of Stoneforge and Thalia will be able to take it down.
Not the most impressive squad here, but good enough to get it done against an opponent who can't cast spells.
He could take the win this turn. He could play Wilt-Leaf Liege and then swing with all the mana dorks. All the creatures, if he includes Mother of Runes in the attack, then it would be lethal. Not mana dorks, but just the dorks. The dorks. Yeah.
More of a general dork.
Yeah. He's gonna... We will see here. Wasteland hits the bin. It's going to take out Caracas. No real reason for Richard to have that Wasteland around. Even though he's stuck on lands, it's not like he needs colorless land.
Keeps Jason from casting the Batterskull in his hand through the Thalia.
All right, well, right on time at 3, Richard draws the Bayou, throws it down, and we're on to game 3.
Right back in it.
And that was Death and Taxes' game plan, straight executed right according to plan.
Yeah.
Really disruptive creature, protecting all his other really disruptive things, and then taking away all of the mana.
Yeah. What you win with is kind of arbitrary at a certain point.
I mean, it was a 2-1 and a 1. It was a 2-1 and a 1-2 hitting 6 times in a row together.
And that's a risk of playing these bug and rug and blue, white, red style decks is that kind of stuff happens all the time. It's not just Wasteland too. Rashad and Port is a big element in all that as well. And cards like Blood Boon, there's all sorts of non-basic land hate that these decks are not that robust at fighting against.
Yeah, well, and this is like one of the other elements of Legacy, like one of the engines of Legacy that we don't see that much anymore. A lot of the decks that play Reach and Import, generally these mono-colored Wasteland Reach and Import decks can definitely attack on that axis. We see Death and Taxes do it. When Goblins is played, we see Goblins doing it as well. Merfolk, back when it's played, also sometimes can do that as well. Not always with the ports, but still with Vial and Mana Denial.
And I think that's why, why is Death and Taxes a substantially better deck than Goblins? It's because it can win games without those elements. Goblins, it feels, in almost every matchup is predicated on getting a Vial into play, Mana Denial, your opponent, and then kind of going from there. Death and Taxes can still win with just, turn 1 Mother Runes into either Stoneforge Mystic or Thalia is very challenging for a large percentage of the field to compete against.
And really the Achilles heel of Goblins has been its combo matchup as well. There's not much Goblins can do, say, against an Ad Nauseam Tendrils player or a Sneak and Show player. Death and Taxes has some game. It has Caracas. It has Thalia. It actually can do things against combo decks.
And in fact, many of the most common, one of the most commonly sideboarded cards in Goblins now is Thalia's. People have moved to that card. They're playing with Plateaus and Cavern of Souls to facilitate Thalia because it's far better than anything you can find in red to deal with those kind of decks.
Yeah, none of the Goblins have any ability that does something like that.
They have
a bunch of awkward abilities.
They like to shatter things.
Yeah, they like to blow things up.
If you don't like artifacts, Goblins is your tribe.
Sometimes they blow themselves up to do it, or they blow up something else. Goblins not always efficient, but
yeah, it's about the finish line.
Yeah.
It's not about the process.
Really, Merfolk, another one of those Aether Vial decks. That one we rarely see anymore.
We had it on camera today. I've seen we've seen a lot actually the last couple of weeks. I feel like these decks that are playing Chalice of the Void main deck and Cavern of Souls, so they can cast their 1-mana creatures through Cavern even with a Chalice in play.
All right. So when we talk about Aether Vial decks, we have a white one, we have a red one, we have a blue one. Missing colors. There's no mono black Aether Vial deck.
I'm not sure what you would really want to vial in. The black creatures aren't really that disruptive. What's disruptive about black is the spells. You have Thoughtseizes and Duresses and so forth. What do you want to violin? Mesmeric Fiend?
I'm not really sure. I know, it's
Brain
like,
Maggot?
It's like Nykthos got a deck of every color when it was in Standard. Yeah,
Right.
and I want this engine to get, I guess Nykthos White never really happened in Standard. It was pretty fringy.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the things you would even want to violin to play. Mesmeric Fiend's not bad. You can kind of make a bootleg Vendilion Click. That's something.
Geralf's Messenger.
Geralf's Messenger, that's pretty good, I guess. I'm really what kind of zombies?
Right, can we do zombies, tribal zombies here? Yeah. Right, you'd be vialing in 2 ones that can't block. That's less than appealing.
Yeah, the problem with the zombie tribe is so many of them are, can't block or comes into play tapped. It's not like this great surprise. I got something on your turn.
Like surprise Bloodghast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose.
As opposed to this deck, you got 3/3 flyers, and you got 2-power first strikers, and you have things that shut down activated abilities. Not that that's a white card necessarily, but much better. Something that blinks things out. These are pretty good effects to be playing on your opponent's turn.
I feel like green could have a good Aether Vial deck. They just don't do it because Elves is better than the green Aether Vial deck.
Yeah, I think also Green Sun Zenith is kind of replaces that role, right? It can make mana or facilitate getting creatures into play.
Yeah. But in the absence of that, you could play Aether Vial green decks, and I think it would be okay.
Yeah.
Black's really just, I'm not sure how you'd do that one.
You could violin an Obliterator in combat.
That could really beat someone.
That's the start.
Whew. You'd better vial him in because you're not going to cast him. He costs too much. We gotta cover things that cost 4 mana in Legacy. They have to be real good.
Yeah, that's true.
But now you got me thinking. All right, what is
are the other
dumbest black thing you can vial in?
Yeah.
Dark Confidant. There's no reason you'd want to vial him in instead of casting him.
Yeah, I mean, besides the reasons of, you played instant speed, you dug some sorcery speed removal. There's not a lot of good reasons.
Ravenous Rats.
Yep.
Just can go with their hands.
Yeah, you just said it to do it. You're just Mesmeric Feeding and Brain Maggoting and Ravenous Ratting them the whole way through.
Just the whole way. Every card is a creature that makes them discard.
Chittering Rats.
Yeah, you could do. That was a deck back in, was it Kamigawa and Mirrodin Standard? They had, it was Chittering Rats, Aether Vial, and then they'd play, there was the black guy from Kamigawa. He'd make you bounce one of your own creatures every turn, so you just keep Chittering Ratsing them.
Yeah.
It was really not very nice.
Does not sound fun.
That's what you have to do. All right.
We got a base.
We got a plan.
We got a base.
You can get them to discard during their draw step too.
I know.
That's fun.
Solid 6 cards here from Richard. It looks like he has some lands and a Golgari Charm.
All right, Richard on the play. Starts with the Misty Rainforest, no turn 1 play, and Jason's going to go ahead and play a Mother of Runes. We'll see whether or not he has the kill spell. Much easier for Richard to do, though, when he's on the play.
I don't even know if he is going to want to use a kill spell here. He has a 3rd land, and so that way it allows Jason, for example, to play Thalia next turn.
All right, we will see what the play is here. Remember, Richard was on a 6-card hand, so he's going to go ahead and fetch up Bayou. You said, yeah, you may not even want to answer the Mother of Runes. You'll see where he goes from that. Fetches 2nd land is going to be a C, and it's just Tarmogoyf. He's going to go ahead and get an aggressive draw going. If Jason does not have another creature, Liliana will go ahead and take care of this Mother of Runes.
And I'm sure Richard right now is crossing the fingers and hoping that this is Thalia. Because then this 3rd land and Golgari Charm does a lot of work.
Yeah, he's kind of got Jason in a pinch here. If he doesn't play a creature, he can Liliana him. If he does play a creature, he maybe can Golgari Charm him, which is better. We see Phyrexian Revoker, but here's the one that is pretty good. Rest in Peace in Jason's hand.
Well, Rest in Peace is still gives the opening here of, and Stoneforge Mystic is quite awesome here for Jason, as doesn't die to Golgari Charm, and Liliana can't take care of it either. Rest in Peace is still something that would have allowed Richard to just play Liliana, take care of it, and use a Golgari Charm perhaps later down the line to just blow up the Rest in Peace.
So we'll see the line that Richard chooses to go for here. I want to think we may still see the Liliana anyway, just so he can get it out on the table, get some value for it. Certainly if he gets a Batterskull or something here, you don't want He needs to stop, for example, the Stoneforge from sneaking something in.
Yeah.
And you see, Jason has opted for Umezawa's Jite this time instead of getting the Batterskull.
I'm interested, has Jason just drawn the Batterskull potentially? People regularly forget that's a possibility when they see someone's Stoneforged equipment. The one you're fearing could already be there.
And that goes into his hand. And we'll see. Remember, he has a Golgari charm. We know about that. We know about a Liliana of the Veil. So he has ways to deal with these creatures, Mother Runes, but his assault's going to be stopped pretty quick here. There's a Rest in Peace. Not to mention the Tarmogoyf's not even very big to start.
Yeah.
And all 3 duels for Shay. He's going to play Liliana of the Veil. That will be a -1. Have to think it's going to get the Stoneforge.
I don't know. I think Mother Runes. I suspect that Jason has the Batterskull here. It's too good against Bug. Then you just let go of Mother Runes here.
You're absolutely right. Batterskull is in Jason's hand. It's a bait and switch with equipment. Gets the Jite, puts the Batterskull into play.
Especially when you know that Golgari Charm is a thing in your opponent's deck post-board. If you're on the fence, you should just be erring on side, sacrificing your 1 toughest creatures.
We'll see which one he gets rid of.
And I get it. It's hard to let go of Mother Runes, but I think Stoneforge here is so much better.
And you are right. He's going to look... Oh, he still isn't sure. Yeah, Mother Runes is going to give Stoneforge Mystic pro-green, so Tarmogoyf can't attack. And then he'll go ahead and sacrifice Mother of Runes.
I like that play from Jason. Bites the bullet. I know it's not easy, but I think that's what you got to do there.
All right. Untaps, has Reshit and Port for the turn. Wasteland is the play. And now he's going to go ahead and Rest in Peace. That will shrink Tarmogoyf down to a 0-1.
And this is awesome for Jason. Now it just allows him to attack Liliana.
Yeah. So Tarmogoyf will be on chump block duty if Richard wants to keep this Liliana. He hasn't wastelanded yet. I imagine we will see something like that as well.
I think he'll want to see, what Richard does about this attack first, but I imagine we're going to be wastelanding here.
Sure. So, all right, attacking Liliana for one. Stoneforge Mystic with the threatening swing. Will the 0-1 Tarmogoyf jump in the way?
Now, I am still, this is a good turn, granted, but I think that I still like this less than putting Batterskull into play. If Richard untaps and has something like Disfigure, all of a sudden things might get a little bit complicated. Now, you still have Rest in Peace buying you a lot of time, but the Batterskull is a very easy route to victory against Bug, in my estimation, so I would just prioritize getting that into play.
Yeah, you get that into play, and if he takes care of the one creature on Smith's side, then he doesn't have a good way to pressure Liliana, and I guess she could eat away at his hand pretty quick.
Yeah.
Shay, though, not sure if he wants to hang on to the Liliana. He does, remember, have the Golgari charm, which can take care of Rest in Peace. It seems like he may want to go ahead and do that and then rebuild the Tarmogoyf, and that's what he's going to do.
This is classic rock and a hard place type of material.
All right, Liliana is down. Will Jason Smith pull the trigger on Wasteland? Answer is yes. He's just not sure which one he wants. Has all 3 duels in play.
I usually err at getting that Underground Sea.
Yeah, double black, the most important double color in the deck. Blue close behind. Green's the one. You want to leave him with double green. That doesn't do anything.
Double black and multiple blue spells in the same turn. So Underground Sea is the land.
Yeah, I suppose double green is there's not much you can do with that. So, Richard down to 2 lands. The 0-1 Tarmogoyf. He can get the Rest in Peace off the board if he wants. It may take the better part of his turn if he does that.
And then what's the plan from there? I mean, he's still not answering the Batterskull.
Now, he doesn't know he may suspect the Batterskull. He doesn't know about the Batterskull.
Correct.
Yet. See, Jason Smith, very gentlemanly, rather than having Shay write down his hand, is playing with the cards Shay knows revealed. That's why the Jite is face up.
Oh, I don't know if that's necessarily gentlemanly. I think Jason might be doing this in part to say, the equipment in my hand is Jite. The equipment in my hand is Jite. Try to induce maybe this Tarmogoyf to come attacking after Richard blows up a Rest in Peace or something along those lines. Maybe he's
very well could be.
Maybe he's being gentlemanly, but maybe not.
Jason handles that Rest in Peace. I think he suspects that card is not long for this game.
be very odd for Richard to have absolutely nothing he can cast. So
He didn't have another land to replace the one that Jason blew up. So even if he doesn't go for the Batterskull, you see Rishid and Port for Jason. He's keeping Richard really low on mana. Yeah, Aether Vial. This is, once again, Vial plus Disruption. Richard's not going to have many resources here. There we go. Golgari Charm going to go ahead and hit the Rest in Peace.
asking Jason, do you want to give up your Stoneforge activation this turn to keep Aether Vial in play? If he chooses to daze here.
Okay, yeah.
Which I believe it looks like he is going to pull the trigger on. This seems like a good spot. What else is this daze doing?
Right. So this is all with the Aether Vial on the stack.
Yes.
All right. So Aether Vial hasn't resolved yet. Yeah. Do you want the Batterskull or do you want the Aether Vial? Interesting choice. I like the play from Jason. I almost think boy, it's really hard to say which one he takes.
I would just let go of this file.
I suppose when you have Richard on one land and you're porting that and you have the option to port that land, that's pretty strong. Richard's not going to do anything with his turn. And you wouldn't even port it. You'd put the Batterskull into play.
Right. Probably after this Tarmogoyf attacks.
Yes. I mean, I'm not even sure. I can't imagine Richard even wants to swing into this. If he's letting this Aether Vial go, you know there's something good coming.
Well, he has port and you know there's a Jitte in hand too, so. Richard should probably strongly suspect that the Batterskull is there, but he can't be 100% sure.
And Jason Smith's going to pass the turn back. One land in play for Richard. We know there's another land in his hand. It's Underground Sea, who will draw for the turn. Draw is Delver of Secrets. He has a second Tarmogoyf right now in hand. So a good amount of creatures. Looks like a pair of Goyfs, pair of Delvers. None of that any good at fighting down a Batterskull or a Jitte, though. Tarmogoyf number 2. And he can't beat... Yeah, he tapped out before. And here comes the living weapon, ambushing Tarmogoyf. Sherm, it's a 4/4 lifelink. It'll swallow the attacker. Jason goes up to 24.
And I think that's the swing that's going to do it here. Richard's hand just 2 copies of Delver of Secrets here. He needs to draw extremely well from here.
And remember, Jason doesn't need to play anything else at this point. You know, he's going to go on a plan of just wasteland, mana denial. He's going to make sure that Richard, even though he doesn't have an answer now, even if he draws an answer, he wants to make sure Richard can't play it.
I think we're going to see equipment onto equipment here.
All right. Quicker way to steal things out. He's going to go ahead and Stoneforge the Jitte in, just in case there might be a daze or something. Jitte is going to go on the Germ token, and the Voltron Germ 4/4 lifelink swings in, hits Richard down to 15, gets 2 Jitte counters. And things have taken a quick turn toward Jason Smith.
And I think we're maybe a turn or 2 away.
And not even going for mana denial. He has all the hits in play.
There's a gold card here drawn for Richard. I don't know if it's a Golgari Charm or Abrupt Decay.
Well, Abrupt Decay would be a start, right? It would take care of the Jitte. He needs a lot to then take care of the Batterskull. He would have to draw a way to answer the Batterskull and the lands to cast it. I'm not sure if he can do that before he dies, to be honest.
Yeah. And keep in mind, Jason's been spending all of his mana here with Stoneforge Mystic and Jitte and Batterskull and Port and what have you. He's still got cards left in hand, and I believe it's Thalia and something else. So
he may be able to seal this up to protect his Batterskull by just casting Thalia next turn and porting a land.
Yeah.
Seems really unlikely that whatever answer Richard could have, most likely one I suppose being like a Maelstrom Pulse, he wouldn't be able to cast it through all that disruption.
So Richard here contemplating what he wants to go after here. I suppose the debate is between the Jitte and the Germ.
Well, he did draw the Abrupt Decay, and my guess is going to be the Germ. I don't even know. So if he goes for the Germ, he's going to wait until it's during combat so that there aren't more Jitte counters. Mm-hmm. And Jason's going to force the issue right now with Thalia. So Richard does have to respond. It's going to be Abrupt Decay. See what it's on, whether it's on Jitte or on the Germ. If it's on the Germ, Jason Smith can simply move the GT over to Stoneforge if he chooses to. All right. Going to take care of the legendary equipment. GT gains 4 life for Jason before it hits the bin. Or pumps. We'll see which one happened. Pumps it up. Okay, I thought absolutely pumps it.
I like it. I like that play.
Right. Yeah. Normally it's like the auto when someone kills your GT, you just say, all right, well, I'll gain some life. But no, if it's on his turn, he's going to go ahead and pump creatures.
An old friend of mine and former British pro player Sam Gomersall and his buddies had a rule when they had GT and draft on Magic Online, because it's so unfair in draft, that they were only allowed to use the gain life button. You weren't allowed to use the other power on it, and it was still really hard to beat.
Just last month we had Kamigawa drafts on Moto. It's like my favorite draft format. And I remember I did play it, and yeah, I did have someone go turn 3 and then turn 4 like GT equip. And I remember not missing that part of limited. You're done.
Yeah.
There's like not even playable artifact removal. And I remember checking my sideboard. I had no pieces of artifact removal despite being red-green. It's like, oh, this is great. Okay. Hope he doesn't draw it again. And we see here the play was Delver of Secrets for Shay. His green mana was ported during his upkeep. He does have some creatures in play, but Batterskull continues to go to work. Shay is now down to 7, Smith up to 28 as he continues to press his advantage. And it looks like one more attack should do it. Shay down to 3, and there's going to be, after that attack.
So now it's spell or bust for Richard to be even able to block next turn.
Jason up to 40. Porting Richard off the bayou. No. Sees whether Delver flips. Doesn't even get to flip the Delver.
And that's going to do it. Just a ham, a Delver, and a polluted Delta.
And there we have it. In 3, Jason Smith, Death and Taxes, takes down the Legacy Open over the Bug Delver deck, wins 3 straight matches through different variations on Delver to be your champion.